Yeah, so you're listening to me, Danny, on his radio show and podcast. So it's always great to get former past guests on my show. And now I'm joined by Chloe from the Tree Foxes. You're one half of the duo, of course, and just wanted to get you on for a catch up. How was 2024 for you as a whole in general?
Yeah, it was good. It was very busy. We did lots of new things, lots of new shows. I mean, the big highlight obviously was we released the album last March. So yeah, that was it's kind of all went up from there, I guess. Got the album out into the world. We released released loads of new songs and we've been performing them live as a duo and also as a full band at festivals and events. And just it's been really, really good, really busy.
Great, onwards and upwards. And you've been together now as a duo for quite some time now.
Yeah, so we started in about 2019. So was that 6 years? What year are we now? Yeah, yeah, 6 years.
Yeah, it's hard to lose
six
track
years now.
sometimes, isn't
It
it?
is. Yeah.
And if you're born and raised in Cornwall, from Cornwall, did
Yes.
that music scene there heavily influence, your music? You got folk music and Americana.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of folky stuff down here, and we've been inspired by lots of other musicians as well from the local area and from Cornwall in general, who've kind of influenced our style. And also we've been joined by some fantastic artists on our album and at some live gigs as well, which have really brought about this kind of like Americana country vibe, bit of bluegrass thrown in there as well, which is nice. Yeah, and then obviously we're living in possibly one of the most beautiful places in the country, and there's so much inspiration around from the nature and from the sea and all of those kind of things. So they've definitely had an impact on the songwriting, sure.
Do you have a favorite part to Cornwall? Like the beaches there in the summer. What's your favorite place?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I love being near the sea. I've recently last year got into surfing and kayaking, coast steering, and all that. So just anything to do with the water for me, being near the sea is absolutely
Yeah,
fantastic. I'm lucky enough where I can see the sea out my window right now and watch the waves, and yeah, love it.
nice. I've seen some photos of Falmouth. It looks like an exotic country when you look at it.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Yes, it's
And
gorgeous there.
you've also performed because I've seen you live, you also performed a song called Cornwall's My Home as well. That
Yes.
song's well received when you perform it. Does that mean a song which is close to your hearts as well?
Absolutely. So yeah, Cornwall My Home is a song written by Harry Glasson, who's a very Cornish man. And we got asked to perform it for the Make a Difference Awards for the BBC in Truro Cathedral. That was a couple of years ago now. And we didn't know the song at the time, and we learnt it for that event. And since then, it's just kind of blown up, and we perform it at pretty much every gig now, and it's such a well-known song, and it's kind of become this Cornish anthem. Obviously, the Fisherman's Friends did that song, and this month in particular, we've been touring with this man called Will Keating, who has does his own fantastic version of Cornwall My Home. We've been doing a tour of loads of churches, 13 churches in Cornwall. We've got six more this week, I think. We've been joining together and doing a lovely joint version of Cornwall My Home along with some other classics by Harry Glasson. And yeah,
Very
it's just an
nice.
absolutely beautiful song.
Very nice. And of course you play instruments on your when you're performing, doing shows,
Yeah,
like guitars as well. Um,
yeah.
and what do you like about that element of it, being able to sing and play instruments at the same time?
It's great. I mean, for me, because I'm doing the harmonies and things, it's like it's nice to it goes well with the so I play the bass, so it goes well with the bass, the kind of you're doing the bass line alongside and then joining with the harmonies. It's really nice. And it's I mean, I absolutely love playing the acoustic bass. It's just such an amazing instrument. It's just so rich and it's not too heavy. So, so it works well for me. And yeah, it's lovely. Amy plays the guitar with her vocals, and it's nice to have that kind of proper, the musicality behind it, whereas having, rather than having a backing track and things like that. And then we're lucky enough to be joined by with a drummer, and a fiddle player, sometimes banjo player, sometimes slide guitar. So yeah, we try and bring in a lot of those kind of folky elements with the instrumentation as well.
My next question I'm going to ask, you released an album last year, which you mentioned, which was successful, called Howl. Was that a
Yes.
debut album? And would you say that was definitely a turning point in your career as well?
Absolutely, yeah. So Howl, we released a kind of unofficial EP before, which just had a couple of tracks on that we recorded ourselves acoustically, and then we'd been working on this album for quite a few years, and it's kind of an amalgamation of all of the songs and the inspiration all to come together into one album. And yeah, it's definitely taken us to another level having that album. When we first released it, we did lots of pre-sales, and we were absolutely blown away by how many people pre-ordered the album and the vinyl as well. We've sold loads of copies, and it's just yeah, we've just had an amazing feedback from it, and it's obviously it's allowed us to play at other venues and taken us to other places. We did our first international show in Portugal in October, and yeah, it's just been amazing to be able to perform, our own songs to different people.
I've got a personal copy of that because I saw you in Leamington Spa, and
Yes.
I always put it on, especially in the kitchen or in the car. Like it's always good to put it in the background. When you're just doing like
Yeah.
your housework or your chores, sing along
Yeah.
to. And on this album, Howl as well, do you have a personal favorite on this track, or would you say you like all of them individually?
I feel like my it changes from time to time because I don't tend to just put it on and listen to it. I kind of forget about certain songs on the album, and I'm like, oh yes, this one's really nice. And I find it funny. Everyone seems to have different preferences and different favorites from the album. I really like How Are You Now, because that was the first single that we released from the album, and that was the one that kind of took us to the next level. I think we've done the EP, and then we released the single, and we released a nice atmospheric music video for it as well. And you feel like you're a proper musician, like when you've got a music video out there. And yeah, and it's a really lovely song to sing harmonies
Yeah.
on, and the message in the song is just lovely as well. Amy's a fantastic songwriter, so
Mm. And
yeah.
you also have a track on there appropriately called Howl as well.
Yes, yeah. So that one was actually the last one to be added to the album. So we went into the studio throughout kind of September, October time, and we were there for a long, quite a few sessions. And we were running behind slightly, and we ended up adding in another day. Well, I think we added in quite a few other days to our recording schedule. And Howl wasn't actually on the list of songs that was going to make it to the album because I'd never heard it before. So we had a little break just before the end of recording, and I went away for a few days. And Amy sent it to me on a voice message, and she was like, "What do you think of this song?" I was like, "Oh, this is beautiful. What should we do with it?" She's like, "I think we should add it to the album." And we only really came together and played it together for the first time in the studio, and then we added on a fiddle track and also the rain, because when Amy originally recorded it, you can hear the recording was done in her caravan, and you could hear the rain hitting the ceiling, the top of the roof on the caravan. We were like, wow, that's really really brings the album together, like the Cornish atmosphere. So we added that on, and yeah, if anyone makes it all the way to the end of the album, that is you can hear the Cornish rain
Mm.
coming in.
Yeah, so what I admire about this album as well, the harmonies are like spot on.
I think
Did like when you're in the recording studio, did that take quite a lot of effort, trying to get the harmonies tight?
yeah, one thing that's obviously good about doing it in the studio is you can do a few takes and things like that. So we record it. It's really well produced by Gareth and Ross in Cube Studios, and we Amy records her vocals, and we obviously record the instruments and the vocals, and then I'll put my vocals on top. And because you want it to be just right, obviously you get some kind of differences in the vocal lines, because when you're in the studio you kind of get inspired to sing in different ways. So, for example, she'll record a couple of different versions of a phrase, and they're all completely different. So then when it comes to doing my harmonies, we've got to pick the phrase that works the best, and then I've got to try and copy that, the phrasing and the breath technique and everything, precisely how Amy's done it in harmony. So it can take quite a while to get it right, and it's very different from doing it live, where we're kind of, you just go with the flow, and it's never going to be perfect, but you know you're working with each other and looking at each other and
Mm.
working out what's coming next, and obviously rehearsing and things like that. But yeah, in the studio, it's right, okay, this is how it's sung. I've got to make sure I'm pronouncing those words correctly in the same way as Amy and things like that. So yeah, it can be quite challenging,
Yeah.
but it's so much fun.
I went into recording studio once about 20 years ago and I done a song and had to do like 20 takes and took its toll on me. Do you find that scenario sometimes you have to do take after take to get it right?
Yeah, it can be quite stressful occasionally, if especially if there's a particular part that's really hard. And sometimes it's the bits that catch you off guard. So for example, in Howl, at the end of the album, you've got the howl, ooh, and it goes over and over, but they're all separate takes of the word howl. Like it's not just, we've not just repeated the first one and gone, right, sing that again and again and again. So it's like you've got to listen, and it's got to be the right length and the right phrase, and it's like, oh, getting that correct. And there's also a couple of differences in our pronunciation, which we didn't really realize until we got in the studio. I can't think of the top of my head what it is, but I realized I was pronouncing a word very differently to Amy, who's from Wales, and I'm from Cornwall, and we were like, oh, we've been saying that word completely differently, so we had to alter that. But yeah.
Have you ever recorded a song in like in one take? I know back in the day artists have done that miraculously.
Um, I mean, when we were in the studio for the album, for example, we always did 5 takes of each section, just because you never know which take might sound good. So even though you might have the perfect take on the first one, you do a load more anyway, which can be very tiring, especially if you're singing a really belty part of the song. But often we'll go back and it's like, oh, actually, the first take was the best one, but you kind of you keep going through, and then you've got to match the different takes
Yeah.
together. But yeah, I mean, we've done some live recordings as well in that studio, and in another studio before, and it's a whole different experience as well when you do it, when you're doing a live take, because you've got to get it spot on. You know, you've got to get it right because it's being recorded, and it's just that one song
Yeah.
as well. It's not just like a performance. You've got to be, got to get it right.
Yeah. It's very interesting to talk about the mechanics of like recording music because I don't get a chance to like touch on that part of in my interview. So yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for going into that.
No
I wanted
problem.
to ask about a dancey track you might have released. It's called
Mhm.
Pleasure.
Oh yeah.
Is that a song you released? Kind of has its own musical style to it.
Yeah, so we released so there's 2 versions of that song. There's an original version, which is one we had as part of our EP a few years ago, and that's called Pleasure as a Sting in Its Tail, and that was one that I'd written, which was really nice to release one of my own songs. And yeah, it was a bit of fun. And then we actually were contacted by this guy called Solar, spelled with 2 A's. He just messaged us on Instagram, and he just said, "I've done a remix of your track." So he went back. He asked if it's okay. I said, "Yeah, sure." So he remixed that track and then released it on BBC, and like through the BBC introducing, and they played it on the radio. And it's obviously we've been added as a collaboration because it's our track, and he's done his own remix. So it's not our usual genre, obviously, but it's fun to have that
Yeah.
different take of it online.
I know where some musicians' aspirations has always been to release like a dance record.
Yeah.
Back in the day,
Yeah,
anyway, when dance music was like kind of popular in clubs and everything back in the day. I mean, dance music's still
yeah.
popular, I guess, to an extent today. It's funny how music changes over the years, though.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And you've been on the road, as we mentioned last year. What do you enjoy most of traveling? On different cities. Do you get a chance to meet different types of people and get a chance to do a bit of sightseeing as well?
Sometimes, I'm not going to lie, a lot of the time we pretty much just see the inside of a travel lodge, the venue, and some petrol stations. There isn't a lot in between because there's a lot of traveling involved.
Mm,
Say one day we're in Sheffield and then the next day we're in Scotland. You're spending the whole day traveling to the venue, and then you've obviously got to set up all the equipment, to do sound check and set up all the merch and things like that. And there's not a lot of stopping and wandering around. I think we managed to do a little bit of exploring when we played in York. We walked around the cobbled stones and things like that, and just to have we were like, well, we've got to check it out. We're in York now. We've got to see what it's all about and
mm,
get a feel for it. But yeah, a lot of the time we don't really get a chance to look
yeah,
around. But I mean, I absolutely love traveling. Whenever we're not gigging, I take the van and go on little solo trips around the UK anyway, just for myself, chuck a mattress in the back and and just go and explore.
yeah,
So I absolutely love the traveling part of it. And also I just find it absolutely incredible that we'll arrive in a completely new city that we've never been in before. And people come up to us and they've heard of us, and they maybe they've already got the album or someone's recommended us, and it still blows my mind that people know us in different out of Cornwall. It's amazing.
yeah. So like maybe you don't get a chance to see enough sightseeing, but like when you were going into the city, you might see the spire of the cathedral.
Yeah, we'll see it out the window, but we don't often stop and have a little look around. But we do try.
Mm, mm. And who have been like your influences and inspirations over the years?
Over the years, so our biggest inspiration has got to be a band called First Aid Kit, who are a Swedish duo from Sweden. Obviously, my mum's just poked her head round. Hello, I'm just doing an interview. Bye.
Hello, Mum.
Yeah, yeah, First Aid Kit are always our go-to because they're very similar to us. They're a female duo. One plays guitar, one plays bass, kind of folky elements and lots of harmonies and things like that. And yeah, lots of folk artists. So we've got Brandy Carlisle, just amazing
Yeah.
songwriter, Laura Marling, um, and yeah, a bit of everything really.
Oh,
There's so
yeah,
many.
good. And where do you get like your creativity, when you're composing music? It could be on the road or, when you're going on a walk somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, Amy does a lot of the songwriting. So she tends to bring me the songs and then we'll go through them together and then come up with bass lines and come up with harmonies and that kind of change the mood, make it into a bit of a True Foxes song. Um, but yeah, so what I've observed from like her songwriting is she's definitely inspired by what's going on in her life. As we all it's like writing a diary, isn't it? If you're having if something's going on that's really exciting, you might want to put those feelings into words, and then the same if something's not so good in your life, then that tends to be, unfortunately, the best inspiration. So you'll find on the Howl album, there's a lot of heartbreak songs on there, few breakup songs, and a couple of love songs as well. So it's a little bit of everything. And yeah.
Great. And looking forward to 2025. Do you have any new music in the pipeline? What we can expect to hear? Maybe you can just say when that could be, maybe.
Yeah, so we've not booked any studio sessions in yet. However, we have lots of new songs that we've been performing. There's a couple of little videos, like short clips up on our social media at the moment. Um, and we were still deciding what should be our next single, mainly based on audiences' reactions to our songwriter to our new songs.
Mm.
But yeah, we've got some really nice kind of a little bit bluesy in some of it, a little bit more country stuff, and yeah, but same True
Yeah,
Foxes, but with a little bit of a twist.
yeah. And is it interesting to kind of monitor like the audience reactions to each of the songs? You find the audience reactions to different songs in the cities vary.
Definitely, yeah. And from person to person, we'll find there'll be a song that we maybe not really thought much about, and then lots of people will react to that song. We're like, oh, okay, this is obviously people are relating to this. There's one that we're not might be a next single, but we're not sure yet, which is called Mama, Why Don't They Like Me? And it's a song about bullying and about looking back at childhood and just kind of thinking about how everyone's a little bit different and sometimes people take advantage of that. And yeah, we kind of tell a little backstory for it, and people seem to really relate to that one and always come up afterwards and say, "Oh, I really liked that song. Are you releasing that?" So that does really influence what we do and what we release um, in the coming future. So yeah, I'm not sure what's coming next, but we will see.
Yeah. Yeah, time will tell.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
definitely.
And on to the festival season. I know
Yeah.
people are planning
Mhm.
festivals now. Do you have any
Yeah.
tips for people who go to festivals or hacks? What's a
Um,
number one accessory for someone to take with them?
Accessory. Oh, that's a good question. Um, I mean, wellies is always a good one, or some sort of thick boots with thick socks, and maybe a plastic bag because you're doing a lot of walking around. There's a lot of mud, and sometimes you want to sit down, and a plastic bag is a great way of
Uh,
sitting down without getting your bum dirty, basically.
Very useful. And of course, you're
Yes.
on the usual social medias.
Yeah.
With the power of Google, you can just put True Foxes in, and people can
Yeah.
take their pick where to follow you.
Yeah, so True Foxes on Facebook is probably our biggest platform where we post all of our live events coming up. And yes, anything that's coming up that week and that month, we tend to post. Instagram is a little bit of that and also just a little bit of fun and some nice pictures that we've gained from people. And yeah, share some like silly stories and things on Instagram. And then we've got TikTok as well, which is kind of like behind the scenes videos of a live. So whatever you use, each platform is different depending on style. So some people might prefer to watch the funny videos, some people might prefer to watch the info on what's coming up. So
Lovely. And then speaking of like amusing stories, do you have any quirky experiences you may wish to share for me and my listeners? Like say being on the road.
ooh, I mean, what we find quite strange is sometimes we'll get people recognize us in strange places, we always find funny and very unexpected. So we've had a police officer recognize us once at a petrol station, which was quite concerning when they came up to the van and banged on the window. We thought we'd done something wrong, but luckily they'd recognized the sunflowers in the front of the van. They're like, "Oh, you're True Foxes." So that's funny. We've had people come up to us in shops and stuff when we're together. It always seems to be yeah, it's very strange. And yeah, I mean we do lots of fun songwriting on the roads for not for the public ear, just kind of us messing about a little bit. And we've been recording a little bit of that on our um, dash cam. So we might be showing some behind the scenes
Hmm.
of on the road footage quite soon as well.
A little bit of True Fox jamming then.
Yeah, we get the ukulele out when I'm driving. Amy's playing the ukulele,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your contribution on today's show.
No
I know
problem.
we got some new music from you on the way, but
Yep.
I've got a little slot where I can preview one of your songs for my listeners. Do you have a favorite you'd like for me to play on my show alongside this interview?
Of whose song, sorry?
Of your songs, of your
Oh, of
music,
my
from your catalogue, of course.
that makes sense. Oh, let's go maybe Wanderer because we're
Okay,
going to be on the road a lot, so Wanderer would be a good one.
brilliant. We'll get that one on for my listeners. Thank you very much, Chloe from
Lovely.
the Tree
No
Fox. It's always
worries.
a pleasure speaking with you this afternoon, evening on my show.
No. Thank you. Cheers.
Great.